Senator Chris Coons questions FBI Director Kash Patel on the real-world impact of Section 702 reforms, judicial security, and counter-drone programs. Coons presses Patel to show whether promised safeguards and accountability measures are truly being implemented.
Let me turn to Section 702.
Yes,
When you testified in front of the CJS subcommittee, we talked about this issue. You told me you were in favor of reauthorizing FISA Section 702 when it expires next year,
Right.
so long as the reforms implemented last year, reforms like better training for agents and real consequences for inappropriate searches of Americans' communications, were maintained. You also said that you had some ideas about how to make Section 702 better going forward. Can you give me an update on the FBI's implementation of these reforms and the direction you think it should go?
absolutely. I think you're referring to the query process, and if you're
Yes.
not, let me know. But any instance of abuse or mistakes that were made in the query process have now been changed. It used to be you can make multiple mistakes and continue to access the query database system. I've changed that. If you make a mistake, you're immediately sidelined, a review is conducted. And if it was an actual mistake, i.e., there should have been S on the end of that name and there wasn't, then we put you back in. But we have to review those matters. So that's happening. And if there was an intentional mistake, you have no more access to the 702 query system and its database. So we've also done an audit of the entire 702 system and the query databases. And now we are nearly 100% of the audit. And I think we found one or two, I'll have to get back to you, quote unquote, mistakes within that system, which are currently being reviewed.
Thank you. You had told me in May that you'd send me updated statistics about the Section 702 searches of Americans' data. I haven't received it. When will I get that?
I'll work with my team to get that to you, Senator.
And frankly, in May, when you were testifying that you were implementing these reforms, you were also closing down the Office of Internal Auditing at the FBI. Now, that was the office created in the first Trump administration to improve the Bureau's compliance with Section 702. How is that working out? How can you continue to advocate for robust civil liberty protections, but shut down the office that was created to enforce those safeguards? Help me understand this.
Absolutely, Senator. This is a great example of sort of duplicative work. Both, there was two divisions in the FBI working on this, and all we did was the inspection division, which is the leader in this query system and this audit system, has now been given the single source mandate to conduct these. So the OIA, its elimination is just taking folks who were working there and were experts in it and folded in under the inspection division, and then taking other folks that we didn't need because we had enough manpower and pushing them elsewhere in the FBI.
I'm concerned about the rise in threats against members of our judiciary. What are you
Yes, sir.
doing with the U.S. Marshal Service
So-
to help protect our federal judges and with state and local judicial systems to help provide some of the expertise of the FBI in protecting them as well?
I share your concern, Senator. We have 35 open investigations, 17 against federal judges, and the remainder against state court judges and threats that they have received. And as you know, federally, there's a specific statute which prohibits that. So we are working up those cases and referring them to prosecution where we can meet the threshold for evidence.
In your written testimony, you referenced how counter-UAS legislation expires and we need to resolve the conflict in jurisdiction and authority. I agree, this is an urgent concern. I have heard from state and local law enforcement about it, from the folks responsible for major events, whether it's sports or concerts or public events. Given the tragic increase in political violence, I'm very concerned about the misuse of drones and the potential of there being a catastrophic event. What could we do to address this challenge?
Well, obviously, reauthorizing the capabilities that we have under the counter-UAS program. But just to highlight what the FBI is specifically doing, we've been given the mandate to work with DHS to secure not just the Club World Cup that we had, by the way, which occurred in 32 matches across the country without any significant incident, which we're proud of. And we're taking that model for the next World Cup and also the Olympics. But the reason I bring that up is because we pushed out our counter-UAS programs to address the security needs. And that's where our focus is on events like that.
Mr. Director, thank you for your testimony. I look forward to working on actually solving criminal problems and reducing the extent to which what we're going back and forth about is more political and partisan point scoring and more actually solving crimes for the American people.
This exchange between Senator Coons and FBI Director Kash Patel provides a rare window into the balance between civil liberties, oversight, and national security. Coons opens by revisiting Section 702 of FISA, a powerful surveillance tool, emphasizing the importance of maintaining reforms that prevent abuses of Americans' communications. His questions highlight the tension between ensuring robust intelligence capabilities and protecting individual rights, a core challenge for any federal law enforcement agency. By asking Patel for an update, Coons is holding the FBI accountable for both its promises and its practices, emphasizing transparency and measurable outcomes rather than vague assurances. Patel responds by detailing concrete changes in the query process, explaining that mistakes, whether minor typos or intentional misuse, now carry immediate consequences, and that an audit of the system is nearly complete. This demonstrates an operational shift designed to minimize risk to civil liberties. However, Coons presses on the tension between oversight and agency structure, questioning Patel on the closure of the Office of Internal Auditing. Patel defends this as a consolidation of functions rather than a reduction of safeguards, but the exchange raises a subtle yet critical question. Can the same level of accountability be maintained when responsibilities are centralized under a single division? Coons's concern underscores the need for independent monitoring mechanisms to ensure reforms are effective and enduring. The discussion then broadens into emerging threats against the judiciary, where Coons highlights real-world dangers posed by increased harassment and violence toward judges. Patel responds with concrete numbers and procedural actions, showing that the FBI is actively investigating and prosecuting threats. But Coons's line of questioning reminds viewers that national security is not abstract. It affects real people tasked with upholding justice. Similarly, when discussing counter-UAS drone programs, Coons ties legislative gaps and jurisdictional conflicts directly to public safety at large-scale events, like the World Cup and the Olympics. Patel's answers demonstrate proactive planning, but the senator emphasizes the political dimension. Oversight should prioritize solving crimes and preventing harm, not scoring points or engaging in partisan debate. What makes this exchange compelling is the interplay between principle and practice. Coons presses Patel on the moral and operational dimensions of federal authority, insisting that reforms promised in hearings translate into measurable outcomes. Patel provides operational details, audits, and policy explanations, yet the conversation illustrates the persistent challenge. Even when safeguards exist, their implementation and monitoring must be actively maintained. Coons' insistence on accountability serves as a reminder that oversight is not ceremonial. It is essential to ensuring the FBI's powers are exercised responsibly and ethically. In sum, this testimony is a microcosm of the larger debate around surveillance, civil liberties, and national security. Coons' questioning underscores that the American public deserves both effective law enforcement and robust protections against abuse, while Patel's responses illustrate the complexity of managing a sprawling federal agency. For viewers, this exchange highlights a crucial principle. Transparency, oversight, and operational rigor are not optional. They are the foundation of public trust in institutions charged with protecting the nation. It also emphasizes that true oversight requires asking hard questions and demanding concrete answers, not accepting assurances at face value. This moment serves as a powerful example of how congressional oversight can ensure that law enforcement agencies remain focused on public safety, civil liberties, and ethical practice, balancing security needs with accountability in a politically charged environment.